Scene 2. This scene takes place April 6, 1861 at the Chestnut residence in Charleston, South Carolina.
When the Southern states seceded from the Union, they took control of U.S. forts and other government properties within their borders. Fort Sumter, however, lying in Charleston Harbor, was still held by U.S. troops. One of Lincoln's first moves as president was to resupply Fort Sumter with fresh weapons, ammunition, and supplies. James Chestnut, a member of the Provisional Confederate Government, began to prepare for war.
Lincoln is intent on arming the fort. He's sending in fresh soldiers and supplies. It's clearly an act of war. Lawrence, my hat!
Certainly Mr. Lincoln will listen to reason.
He hasn't yet. The War Council is meeting this evening to decide how to respond.
James, do you see any way that war can be avoided?
No, my dear, I don't.
Send word to me, James, about what you decide. I'd rather know than sit here and wonder.
I will. Lawrence!
Maria Whitaker and Lawrence are in the kitchen of the Chestnut home.
Lawrence, Master Jim's calling for his hat. Can you hear him?
If it's his hat, then he should be able to find it.
It's not nonsense, it's the truth. Oh, wait. What are you talking such nonsense for?
It's not nonsense, it's the truth.
You want to be free. Is that it? Where would you go? What would you do?
You forget. Miss Mary taught me how to read. I guess I can take care of myself all right. Haven't I taken care of Master Jim all these years?
I've heard enough. Find the hat and then take Miss Mary her tea.
A few minutes later, Lawrence takes Mary her tea and sets it down in front of her.
Thank you, Lawrence. Mr. Lincoln has set down 6 men of war to sit in our harbor. It appears that we're headed for war.
Lawrence says nothing and leaves the room. Mary looks puzzled. She rings the bell for Maria. Maria hurries into the room.
Yes, ma'am?
Maria, is anything wrong with Lawrence? He's gotten very quiet.
He never shall learn how to read.
Maria, how can you say such a thing?
Because now he spends all his time reading the newspapers about Mr. Lincoln and your friend, Mr. Davis, and the war that's coming. And now his mind is filled with thoughts like things are going to change.
Things are going to change, Maria. Don't you know that? No matter how the war ends, you'll be free. Before we get out of war, we'll have to free you.
And then what? Hasn't anybody thought about that?
Later that night, Mary wrote again in her diary.
Not by one word or look can we detect any change in the demeanor of these near-go servants. Lawrence sits at the door, sleepy and as respectful and as profoundly indifferent. So they carry it too far. They cannot tell that they hear anything, and people talk before them as if there were chairs and tables, and they make no sound.
End of scene.